Jerry Ashton here with WGRNradio.com. 15 minutes of fact, which, as my listeners know, is to be probably enshrined for at least 2 or 3 weeks in history as being my best attempt to bring some form of oral history to events that either affect or have been affected by the Occupy Wall Street movement. One of the most important things coming up for occupiers is the 2012 conventions. I doubt very much that they're going to be occupied. They're going to occupy that successfully, and I doubt very much if they'll be invited to cover it in any particular fashion, which is why we have a special guest today. Her name is Evelyn Messinger. Is that correct? Messenger or Messinger?
Messenger is good, Jerry. Thanks.
Messenger is good. Well, you're president of Interact in the San Francisco Bay Area, and you're also very, very essential to having worked with something called Voices Up 2012 by way of linktv.org, and as selecting a selection process for creating 2 citizen journalists that are going to attend the 2012 conventions. So obviously, that's going to be of some curiosity for the listeners for 50 Minutes of Fact, because we feel that we are voiceless, and we feel that mainstream media does not give us what needs to be given to us to understand what's going on. And you're obviously doing something to counteract that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself first, and then let's address this Voices Up 2012 and the citizen journalists.
Okay. Interact is short for Internews Interactive, which is the full-out name of our nonprofit. And we actually launched the nonprofit in 1998, which was a long time ago now. But the idea was that the digital transition was coming, what was called at the time the digital convergence. And this is the world we live in now, what you might call Web 2.0. But we could see that there was a possibility that the growth of the Internet could give citizens more leverage in policy discussion. You know, we live in a democracy, and the idea of the democracy is that the people control what's being discussed, and not only that, but who gets elected. So we saw that the growth of the Internet could change the discussion in profound ways, and it has. The problem is that it hasn't given citizens more control. Ultimately, it's actually contributed to us having less control.
Well, you know, I'm not even sure if the word control works for me as much as the idea that there's already too much control. There's control by Fox about the way they say things, controlled by mainstream media, the way they say things. I think it's really access to information that needs to be heard. And what intrigues me about your background is that you've arrived at that place where you say, apparently, the only way to get voices heard is by creating citizen journalists.
Yes, well, there's a cacophony of the voices of people online, but it's a sort of disorganized process, and the potential of people being able to leverage what people care about in the media has gone down, partly because there's such a welter of different voices, and often they're arguing with each other. I've been working for many years with the idea that there's something beyond political partisanship that has to do with where everyone agrees to certain things, but we end up fighting with each other, and the key things that people really care about kind of get thrown under the bus in that process.
Well, give me a couple examples.
Well, I think the main example, the easiest one to understand, and what we're working on now, has to do with money and politics. There's just a growing disenchantment with the whole process. There's Citizens United, there's the corporate money in politics, but even beyond that, attack ads, the whole process. To me, one of the biggest issues is how the Justice Department, lets corporations off the hook with this thing called deferred prosecution, where somebody commits fraud, and somebody being a corporation and maybe a person in that corporation, and they pay a fine, and they're not even allowed to say that they're guilty. Certainly no one's going to go to jail, and I think people are really upset about this.
Well, that's certainly one of the reasons why Occupy Wall Street has come into existence, and it seems to be a large tent under which people with a grievance, with a desire to bring things back to true north, can join in. And I know when I said earlier, I wasn't joking about the fact that it would be doubtful if any Occupy people would be invited to cover any of the conventions. And I admire the fact that apparently some time ago you launched that nonprofit called Digital Citizen, and then ended up connecting with an organization called United Republic to finally produce this one thing that we'll be talking about today, and that is 2 citizen journalists will be dedicated to reporting truthfully and accurately and asking the questions that the rest of us don't seem to be able to put out there very well. So you guys are doing that, and I'd like to know more about your relationship with United Republic and how this came about.
Okay, well, our nonprofit launched the Digital Citizen Initiative about 2 years ago, knowing this election was coming up and that the media is now fully mature in terms of the ability for citizens to connect online, and to be on television. You could look at the Arab Spring in a way and say that it had to do with the Internet, but it also had to do with the fact that there was Al Jazeera, a television outlet. So how do you connect what's going on online to what's going on television, and what's the point of doing that? Okay, so finally getting to my point here. So we realized that money in politics was crucial to people being, citizens being able to take control of the dialogue in media. And we worked with let me see. We launched basically a competition to find 2 citizen journalists who we could send to the conventions to be on television.
Now, when you say we did that, who were the people involved with that?
Well, we launched it, or Interact did, and we started working with United Republic, which is a really excellent organization. They have over 250,000 Facebook likes and followers all over the internet. So they have a lot of people who care about money in politics, which is the issue that they launched on. And it's perfect for our purposes because they do excellent journalism. They have a secondary website called republicreport.org, and unitedrepublic.org has these followers. So we put our competition asking people to submit videos telling us why they want to go to the conventions for Link TV to report about money in politics. So clearly we had to get Link TV and United Republic on board, which we did, and so we have a group now that has worked together to do this.
Well, I'm delighted with the results. I've had the pleasure of talking to at least one of these citizen journalists, a lady by the name of Jessica Eise. I haven't talked to Solomon as yet, but he'll certainly be an object of interest for my listeners. So apparently you were part of the vetting process, that you watched these videos and you interviewed these people. So tell me what that was like and how you ended up with these 2.
Well, at first we thought, well, would anybody even do this? I'm not sure anyone's ever tried to actually find citizen journalists to put on TV in such a public way. And we're very happy that a number of people did, the scores of people did leave videos and to compete for these positions. And so the ones that were getting the most votes, it was a kind of vote up, vote down situation, and who, had some things intelligent to say, rose to the top, and we set up a series of Skype calls, and we, interviewed them via Skype, because it's one thing to post a video where you're kind of reading what you want to say, and another to actually speak. And so in that process, Jessica Eise, who, is a very bright, well-traveled young woman, and Solomon Kleinsmith, who's a blogger whose blog is called Rise of the Center, and he's a very committed centrist. And they just stood out, there was many, many good videos, and a few of the finalists are going to be on an editorial team, and we'll see them on TV too in the pieces that we do from the conventions, advising our two reporters. And many of the people who posted had excellent questions that they want to ask about money and politics.
Well, this is the part that interests me, is that in addition to these people almost being self-selected and selected by their peers and by your organization, you're soliciting questions that they then will take with them to the conventions. Right. I love that idea.
Me too.
Well, how can, obviously so. So I'm going to ask you, or confirm the fact that there are ways of people that can get in touch with you and can be participating in this. I know that you can be reached by email at this, iasupport@earthlink.net. That's IA, 2 letters, support, SUPPORT, @earthlink.net. And that if they go to unitedrepublic.org/2012 conventions, they'll be able to get in touch with you folks. And of course, we have a lot of people on Facebook, so all they have to do is look up United Republic there. Is that correct?
Yes, that's true. And they can leave comments for us and also watch all the videos. All the submissions are there at United Republic, as well as at Link TV's site.
Well, you're doing your job as a citizen to see that the voice gets out there. I want to thank you very much for the time that you've spent with us here on 15 Minutes of Fact. And I'm going to ask you if there's anything that you would like to leave in the thinking of people who are listening to this interview.
Actually, I would. We've been working with Occupy people as well as Tea Party people. Believe it or not, there are some shared interests, and this has to do with the corruption of money in politics, as well as many issues. For example, the National Defense Authorization Act that allows the government to arrest Americans and, for that matter, kill them. And these are issues that are shared across the spectrum, and it's very important to everyone that people realize that the enemy is not the guy on the other side politically. The enemy is really those who are trying to oppress us from above.
Well, I don't think you could end the interview with anything better than that observation. I want to thank you once again, Evelyn Messinger, for spending some time with us, and I certainly urge my listeners to not only check out the websites that you've provided and we've talked about, but also to follow our two young reporters, that's Solomon Kleinsmith and Jessica Eise, in their interview quest at the 2012 conventions.
Good. Thank you so much, Gary. I really had enjoyed it.
Well, thank you, Evelyn. Bye-bye.
Bye.